which FSU player will bounce back the most after a rough 2024 season? And I think all across, offensively and defensively, we did see some lesser play from some players, some that we saw the year prior that we expected to take a big jump and jump into some starting roles and playing at a different caliber, certainly than what we thought or what we saw in 2024. But to you guys, and this is just one player, it's not offensively and defensively. If you have an honorable mention, feel free to throw it in there afterward. But to you guys, which player is it?
I'm going to go with Hakeem Williams. And, I will say he improved on his receiving stats during his sophomore year compared to his freshman year, but he didn't necessarily make that big leap that we all expected as far as production and, what he was able to do on the field in 2024. And I think a lot of it was just due to the tough start that he got out to. Obviously he was making some really nice strides over the offseason. Especially in preseason camp, really starting to come together. And then, a couple weeks before FSU's first game, suffered a hamstring injury that sidelined him for a pretty big period of time. Those are really tough to come back from. And then it felt like after that, he was just never able to get into a consistent rhythm. And, you couple that with Florida State's lack of passing attack and, the struggling protection up front. You just never really got to see the progress that you were hoping to going into the 2024 season. And I think he's someone with this revamped system that Florida State's going to be running and what they're doing along the offensive line as well, bringing in Thomas Castellanos. I think he's someone that you finally start to see that surge in year 3 in Tallahassee. It's going to be a critical offseason for him during the tour of duty. And then obviously, hit the spring running under new wide receivers coach Tim Harris Jr.
Yeah, there's a few names you could go with. I thought about Hakeem Williams, but I'm kind of just not really sold on him. I wasn't that sold on him as a recruit, but that's not really saying anything. You could go to Shaheim Brown, who we talked about a couple weeks ago, where I kind of lambasted the safety position. I didn't like anybody in that room, and you would hope he could possibly bounce back. I'll go with Blake Nicholson, though, a guy who had some burn last year, but by the end, he was getting passed up by Juice Cryer and some of these other guys in that room before Cryer got hurt. Even Omar Graham was seeing more snaps than him by the end. I think he's just a guy that has good instincts and good speed for a linebacker, but just wasn't getting developed probably the right way and didn't have a great scheme around him. There's not really many guys that are in line for starting positions next year, across the roster that were still on this team last year. There's a lot of competition up in the air, and I feel like Nicholson, at the very least, will be in the thick of that, even if he's not starting immediately.
Yeah, I think to me, too, for Blake Nicholson, it's going to be nice to have Tony White more involved as well. John Papuchis has now moved over there as a linebackers coach. Randy Shannon no longer with the program. And Blake Nicholson, you see a lot of good things from him. I think with Tony White, there was a video that was shared across social media of, I think, a recruit that took video of Tony White during, maybe it was a junior day visit weekend or somewhere he was visiting Florida State, and got to see kind of behind the scenes of Tony White and what he was talking about, his defense and how that's going to play. And it's going to play with a lot of aggressiveness, a lot of running, a lot of speed to the ball, which is something that lacked massively last season. It was atrocious sometimes to just see the lack of energy, the lack of effort, and just overall, you kind of question if some players were even out there on the field to play or want to play. To me, I'm going to pick one, and you brought it up. It's Shaheim Brown. I think this is a player that has just such good raw talent that I don't know what happened last year. I think there's a lot of things that we found out that he had to deal with off the field as well, and it kind of spread as a disease. I feel like across the whole team. You could kind of go with Hakeem Williams as well. He was making plays that we're not expecting him to make. And when I say make plays, I mean, there were plays that he was drops. I mean, there were some big pivotal drops that he was having on his end. I just think a disease draped across the offense and defense, special teams. That didn't reach over there to Fitzgerald and Mastromano, but defensively, and someone that you need to have step up in a room that needs it, is Shaheim Brown, because we've talked about, and we'll probably talk about going into the spring, of a position group that needs to look into the transfer portal to add some depth and maybe add some more experience. I'd like to see Shaheim Brown do that. And then there's another guy in there that I'm sort of, and I think we all on here, a little surprised maybe that he's still here, and we'll see what happens in the spring. But Conrad Hussey, we were hoping to see such a bigger season from him in 2024, but that was a big letdown from him, and we saw such you saw such a good flash from him in his freshman year. I think primarily I'm staying in that safety room with Shaheim Brown and Conrad Hussey, gentlemen. Those two need to step up, or Florida State's in some trouble there on the defensive side of the ball in the deep secondary.
Yeah, I also had Shaheem written down, and what I didn't realize is he actually ended up leading FSU in tackles with 70 total tackles in 2024. But I'm thinking this transition to the new defense is going to be beneficial. Having a new position coach in Evan Cooper can help as well. And you were kind of talking about it there, Logan, when you were discussing the junior day behind the scenes visit and Tony White talking about what he wants his defense to do. And, he wants his team to hustle to the football, show more effort than any team in the country, obviously be physical. But, a big thing that Florida State was lacking last year was just the motor from the defensive players and the pursuit to the ball. It just wasn't there. And I think Tony White, he's gonna get that fire out of these guys. And if he doesn't, then those guys aren't going to be on the field. So Shaheem Brown is someone who I think will buy into that message and, get back to what he was doing in 2023. I also think with Florida State, just having more consistent players in front of them where you're not giving up massive holes in the run game, linebackers missing a tackle, and a guy's getting to that second and third level where the safety has to get involved. That's going to help Shaheem look a little bit better as well.
I think my second option, which would have been an absolute cheap out, was just to say the entire running back room. But it's tough to say just like one player, but that whole room's going to get benefited from not only an entire offensive line change in front of them, but a revamped scheme that's definitely more run focused and a running quarterback that can take some of the pressure off of that. I think all of that in general will help that running back room out as a whole. But when the question is which one player will it be, that we've talked about how that room's going to be by committee at the very least. So it's hard to single out one player.
Yeah, well, I had a big name on there. That's Cam Davis. I was thinking about him earlier when trying to figure out who I want to pick in this. And, Cam Davis is going to really, hopefully, like the change in the offensive line under Herb Hand and the transfers that they brought in that are going to be pivotal guys to make an instant impact. And there's going to be some holes for him, and he can use his physicality. But I didn't really feel like we got to see Cam Davis as Cam Davis. I don't know. It just felt off. Yes, there were some things too where there were holes open for him, and he's got to learn and develop and get better with his vision. But that's very hard to do when you were working with the worst offensive line that I don't think could even really had played at the high school level as well. So, gotta like the future, hopefully, for some younger guys in that running back room, specifically like Cam Davis, and we'll see some guys like Mekhi Danzy. But for someone that needs to definitely see a better season and bounce back, I've got Shaheem Brown and honorable mention Cam Davis down there on the offensive side for me.